The Dragon Keeper of Aelora's Part 1 Marcus stood at the edge of the mountain and watched the sun rise over the kingdom of Aelora. He was a human boy only 17 years old, and his entire life had been leading to this single moment. Behind him stood the most beautiful and mysterious structure he had ever seen. The Aelora Combat Academy rose from the mountainside like a castle made of starlight and ancient stone. Crystal towers spiraled upward into the clouds, and silver banners fluttered in the wind. No human had ever been admitted to this school before. The academy was created thousands of years ago for elven women only, the fiercest female warriors in all the realms. Marcus pulled his acceptance letter from his pocket for the 100th time that morning. His hands trembled as he read the words written in flowing elven script. The letter confirmed what seemed impossible. He had passed the trials. He had proven himself worthy. He was being admitted as the first male human student in the entire history of the academy. He took a deep breath and walked forward through the massive crystal gates. The moment he stepped inside, he felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. The entrance hall was enormous and beautiful. The walls were made of smooth white marble that seemed to glow with an inner light. High above, the ceiling displayed the night sky, though it was early morning outside. Stars and constellations moved slowly across the painted dome. On either side of the grand hallway stood statues of legendary female warriors, each one carved from pure jade and adorned with silver. A young elf woman appeared at the far end of the hall. She moved with the grace of a dancer, but her presence commanded absolute respect. Her hair was like spun silver, braided with gems that caught the light. Her eyes were the color of deep emeralds, and they fixed upon Marcus with intense curiosity. She wore the formal robes of an academy instructor, deep blue silk embroidered with gold patterns of dragons and stars. "You must be the human," the woman said. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. She approached Marcus with measured steps. "I am Lyra Starwhisper. I lead the Advanced Dragon Bonding Program here at the Academy." Marcus bowed respectfully as he had been taught. "I am honored to meet you, Instructor Lyra. My name is Marcus Hayes. Thank you for accepting me into this great school." Lyra studied him carefully. Her emerald eyes seemed to see right through him, reading his thoughts and measuring his character. "Welcome to the Aelora Combat Academy, Marcus. Your presence here is unexpected. Many students will question why a human has been admitted. Many will challenge you. Some may even wish you harm. Are you prepared for this?" "I am ready," Marcus said, though his heart raced with nervous energy. "I have trained my entire life for this opportunity. I will not disappoint you or the Academy." "Good," Lyra said with a slight smile. "Come with me. I will show you to the dormitories and introduce you to the other students." As they walked through the academy halls, Marcus tried to hide his amazement. Every room they passed was filled with wonders. He saw libraries with shelves that extended so high they disappeared into shadows, filled with books bound in dragon leather. He saw training halls where he could hear the sounds of fierce combat, the clash of weapons and the cries of warriors in battle. He saw gardens that seemed to exist in a different season than the outside world, filled with flowers that bloomed in impossible colors. The dormitory was a tower of beautiful stone chambers. Lyra led Marcus to a small room on the 3rd level. It was simple but elegant, with a window that overlooked the mountains. She explained the rules of the academy. Students woke before dawn to train. Combat lessons began at the 6th hour. Magical studies took place in the afternoon. Meals were eaten in the Great Hall where all students gathered together. "There is one more place I think you should see," Lyra said after she had finished explaining the academy's rules. "It is the most sacred place in all of Aelora. I am taking you there because I believe you have a connection to it. I can feel it." Lyra led Marcus down a long stone staircase that spiraled downward beneath the academy. The air grew cooler and more humid. The walls changed from smooth marble to rough stone. Torches flickered along the passages, casting dancing shadows. They walked for what seemed like a very long time, deeper and deeper into the heart of the mountain. Finally, they emerged into an enormous cavern. Marcus gasped at what he saw. The cavern was vast, stretching so far across that he could barely see the other side. Crystalline pools of water reflected light from luminous stones set into the ceiling. Massive stone formations rose like columns decorated with ancient carvings, and there, scattered throughout the cavern, were the dragons. Marcus had read about dragons in old books and heard stories from travelers, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of seeing them. They were magnificent creatures, larger than houses with scales that shimmered like jewels. One dragon had scales of pure gold that caught the light and threw it back in dazzling patterns. Another was deep purple with patterns like frost. A third was emerald green with wings that seemed to fade into mist. "These are the sacred dragons of Aelora," Lyra said softly. "Each one is bonded to one of our elite students. The bond between a warrior and a dragon is the deepest connection two souls can share. It is sacred and eternal. A dragon will fight beside their bonded warrior without question or hesitation. Many of our greatest victories came because of the partnership between woman and dragon." Marcus walked slowly through the cavern, admiring each dragon, but then his eyes fell upon one creature that was different from all the others. This dragon was smaller, perhaps half the size of the others, with scales that shimmered between violet and deep blue. She was beautiful, but there was sadness in her appearance. Her wings were torn and scarred. She lay curled up in a corner of the cavern, separated from the other dragons by an invisible barrier of shimmering energy. "What is wrong with that dragon?" Marcus asked quietly. Lyra's expression became sad. "Her name is Iris. She was injured 3 years ago in a battle with a dark sorcerer. Her original bonded warrior, a great and noble elf woman named Cassandra, fell in combat defending Iris from harm. Since that day, Iris has refused to bond with anyone else. We have tried everything. Every year, one of our finest students attempts to form a connection with her. But Iris is proud and hurt. She rejects them all. We fear she may never fly again." Marcus stared at the beautiful violet and blue dragon. He saw the intelligence in her eyes and the pain that she carried. He made a decision then and there that would change everything. "Lyra," Marcus said, "I would like to spend time with Iris. I would like to try to help her." The Dragon Keeper of Aelora Part 2. Lyra was silent for a long moment after Marcus made his request. She studied him with those piercing emerald eyes, searching for something deep within his character. Finally she spoke. "That is a bold choice for your first day," Lyra said. "Most students would ask for combat training or magical instruction. Few would choose to spend their time with a broken dragon. I will grant your wish, Marcus. But you must understand that Iris is dangerous. Her pain has made her unpredictable. She could harm you without meaning to." "I understand," Marcus replied. He did not fully understand, but he knew that true strength came from taking risks and facing challenges with courage. Over the next weeks, Marcus developed a routine. He would wake before dawn and train with the other students in the combat halls. He learned the basic forms of elven sword fighting, a beautiful and deadly dance of movement and precision. The other students watched him carefully, some with curiosity, others with barely hidden hostility. But Marcus focused on his training and did not let their judgment affect him. After his combat lessons, Marcus would change clothes and head to the dragon sanctuary. Every single day without fail, he would sit near Iris. At first, the dragon ignored him completely. She would lie in her corner, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and steady. Marcus would sit in silence, sometimes for hours, simply being present. Slowly, Marcus began to speak to Iris. He told her stories of his childhood in the human villages, of learning to fight against older and stronger opponents, of dreaming of becoming a true warrior. He spoke about his fears and his hopes. He talked about how he felt like an outsider here at the academy, just as she seemed to feel alone and separated from the other dragons. Days became weeks. Marcus never rushed Iris. He never tried to force her to interact with him. He simply came every day and sat and talked and waited. He brought her favorite foods that the sanctuary keepers told him she had once enjoyed. He placed them carefully within her reach but never demanded that she eat them. Then one afternoon something changed. Marcus was telling Iris about a time when he had failed a test in his youth and how he had learned that failure was not an ending but a beginning. He was so focused on his story that he did not notice at first. But gradually he realized that Iris's breathing pattern had changed. She was listening. Her ears had turned toward him and one of her massive eyes had opened slightly. Marcus's heart raced, but he remained calm. He did not acknowledge the change. He simply continued speaking, telling more stories, sharing more of himself with the dragon who had suffered so much. 2 days later, as Marcus sat in his usual spot, something miraculous happened. Iris lifted her massive head and turned to look directly at him. Their eyes met and Marcus felt a strange sensation in his mind. It was like touching electricity or standing in a lightning storm. Images flashed through his consciousness. He saw battles and fire and pain, He saw a beautiful elven woman with kind eyes standing beside a young iris. He felt the crushing weight of grief and loss. Without thinking, Marcus slowly raised his hand, palm open and facing upward. He did not move toward Iris. He simply held his hand steady and waited. The dragon moved forward one slow step at a time. Her injured wing dragged slightly, but she walked with determination. When she reached Marcus, she lowered her enormous head and allowed him to place his hand upon her scales. The moment his skin touched her scales, the connection became complete. A golden light burst forth from where they touched, illuminating the entire cavern. Marcus cried out with the intensity of the sensation. He could feel Iris's emotions and memories. He could understand her pain and her loneliness. And somehow Iris could feel his emotions too. She could sense his determination and his compassion. When the light faded, Marcus was on his knees, tears streaming down his face. Iris had withdrawn her head but remained standing close beside him. She made a low rumbling sound, not threatening but almost like a purr. The bonding had occurred. News of this unprecedented event spread through the academy like wildfire. A human boy had bonded with a dragon that no elf had been able to reach. The other students reacted with shock and amazement, but not all of them were pleased. A fierce elf woman named Victoria, who had always been favored by the academy masters, began to view Marcus as a threat. Victoria was a skilled warrior, tall and athletic with long black hair and sharp features. She had always competed to be the best student in the academy. She had trained for years to become the strongest, the fastest, the most talented. But Marcus, a human boy who had only just arrived, had accomplished something no one else had been able to do. This did not sit well with her pride. One evening in the great dining hall, Victoria approached Marcus's table. Around them, hundreds of elven women were eating their dinner. The great hall was magnificently decorated with silver and crystal, with long tables made of polished wood and torches casting warm light. "Human," Victoria said coldly, "I challenge you to a combat trial. We will fight in the arena tomorrow at noon. I want to see if your bonding with that broken dragon has made you a true warrior, or if you are just a lucky fool." All conversation in the dining hall stopped. Everyone turned to watch Marcus. He felt thousands of eyes upon him. This was a test, he knew. If he refused the challenge, he would be seen as weak and a coward. If he accepted, he would have to face one of the Academy's finest warriors. "I accept your challenge," Marcus said, meeting Victoria's eyes. "Tomorrow at noon, I will be there." Victoria smiled, but it was not a kind smile. She turned and walked away, confident in her victory. That night, Marcus could not sleep. He walked down to the dragon sanctuary where Iris rested. The dragon seemed to sense his anxiety. She moved close to him and lowered her head. Marcus placed his forehead against her scales and felt a sense of calm wash over him. Through their bond, he could feel Iris's strength and courage. She believed in him. She would stand beside him no matter what came. The Dragon Keeper of Aelora. Part 3. The morning of the combat trial arrived with a clear blue sky and bright sunshine. Marcus woke early and performed his usual training routines. He stretched his muscles and practiced the combat forms that Lyra had taught him. He ate a light breakfast of bread and fruit and drank fresh water from the crystal fountains. He tried to calm his mind and prepare himself for what was to come. At 11:30, Marcus made his way to the great arena. The arena was a massive circular structure carved into the mountainside, surrounded by towering stone walls. The floor was made of smooth gray stone, marked with circles and symbols that had been painted centuries ago. Above, the sky was open, allowing natural light to pour down onto the fighting ground. The stands around the arena were already filling with students and instructors. Hundreds of elven women were arriving, eager to watch the combat trial. Word of Marcus's bonding with Iris had spread throughout the entire academy, and everyone wanted to see if a human boy could truly stand against one of their finest warriors. Victoria was already in the arena when Marcus arrived. She was warming up, performing complicated fighting movements with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. Her muscles rippled beneath her skin as she moved. She wore combat armor made of scales dyed deep red, and she carried 2 curved swords that looked sharp enough to cut through stone. When she saw Marcus entering the arena, she smiled coldly. Lyra stood between them as the official judge of the trial. She wore the formal robes of an academy master, and she carried the staff of judgment, a tall wooden staff carved with symbols of ancient power. "This is a trial of combat," Lyra announced. her voice carrying across the arena so that everyone in the stands could hear. Victoria of House Stormwind against Marcus Hayes. The rules are simple. The trial ends when one combatant yields, is disarmed, falls to the ground and cannot rise, or concedes defeat. Begin when the bell sounds. She raised her hand and a young student rang the great bronze bell that hung above the arena. The sound echoed across the mountains. Victoria attacked immediately, moving with incredible speed. Her two swords flashed through the air, striking at Marcus from multiple angles. Marcus drew his single weapon, a training sword made of reinforced wood, and raised it to defend himself. The impact of Victoria's blows sent vibrations through his arms. He was forced to give ground, stepping backward rapidly as Victoria pressed her advantage. The crowd in the stands gasped and cheered, shouting support for Victoria. They were watching an elven woman warrior, refined and beautiful and perfectly trained, facing a human boy who seemed outmatched and desperate. But Marcus did not panic. He had learned something important in his weeks at the academy. Elven warriors were trained to think like predators. They were taught to attack with overwhelming force and to never hesitate. This strength was also a weakness. Marcus allowed Victoria to drive him backward across the arena. He appeared to be struggling, appearing to barely defend himself. But he was watching her patterns. Every 5 strikes, Victoria would shift her weight slightly to the right. Every few seconds, she would pause for just a moment before beginning a new combination of attacks. Marcus learned her rhythm. When Victoria attacked again, Marcus was ready. He stepped to the side instead of backward, allowing one of her swords to pass harmlessly past his body. He used her momentum against her, using his smaller and lighter frame to move past her defenses. He struck her on the shoulder with his wooden sword. It was not a hard blow, but it broke her flow. Victoria snarled and came at him again with renewed fury. The crowd's cheers grew louder. The trial was becoming something more than just combat. It was becoming a battle of wills and tactics. For another hour they fought. Marcus was smaller and weaker than Victoria, but he was clever. He used the arena itself as an ally, positioning himself with the sun behind him so that Victoria had to squint when she looked at him. He made her chase him across the stone floor, making her work harder with each passing moment. Sweat began to bead on Victoria's forehead. Her breathing became heavier. Her attacks, which had been so precise and perfect at the beginning, became slightly slower. Marcus realized that endurance was his advantage. Elven warriors were trained for short, explosive battles. They were not used to long fights where they had to maintain their effort and concentration for extended periods. Victoria began to make small mistakes. Her guard dropped slightly. She was becoming tired. Then Victoria made a critical error. She overextended on an attack, reaching too far for a strike that Marcus easily avoided. Marcus seized the moment. He moved inside her defense and swept her legs out from under her. Victoria crashed to the ground with a sound like thunder. The crowd fell silent. For a moment, no one moved. Victoria lay on her back, staring up at the sky. Slowly, she rolled onto her side and pushed herself up with her hands. "I yield," she said, her voice bitter and filled with anger. "You have won this trial." The crowd erupted in shocked cheers. Marcus helped Victoria to her feet, showing respect to a worthy opponent. Lyra approached them both and raised Marcus's hand in victory. "The human has proven himself," Lyra announced. "A victory earned through tactics and endurance rather than raw strength. This is wisdom in combat." Marcus Hayes has passed his first trial. But Marcus knew that winning this single combat trial meant very little. Victoria had pride and ambition, and she would not forget this defeat. She would be waiting for an opportunity to challenge him again, and there were other students in the academy who might wish to test themselves against him, some for honor and some for spite. That evening, Marcus returned to the Dragon Sanctuary. Iris was waiting for him, and when he walked toward her, she came forward to meet him. Through their bond, Marcus could feel her pride in his victory. She had watched the trial through some connection Marcus did not fully understand. She had sensed his struggle and his triumph. Marcus placed his hand on her scales and spoke to her softly. "This is only the beginning, Iris. We have a long road ahead of us. But together I believe we can achieve great things." Iris rumbled in agreement, a sound like distant thunder rolling across mountains. The Dragon Keeper of Aelora, Part 4. The weeks following the combat trial brought significant changes to Marcus's life at the academy. While some students remained skeptical of the human boy's presence, many others approached him with newfound respect. Victory in combat was the language that elven warriors understood best, and Marcus had proven himself worthy. Lyra invited Marcus to participate in advanced training sessions. He began to study not just with the younger students but alongside some of the Academy's most talented warriors. A fierce elf named Melissa became one of his training partners. She wielded twin silver blades with deadly precision and initially viewed Marcus with suspicion, but after fighting beside him in several practice sessions, she began to respect his determination and growing skill. Another student, Amber, approached Marcus in the library one afternoon. She was younger than most of the other students, with soft auburn hair and kind brown eyes. Unlike many of the warriors, Amber was pursuing magical studies rather than focusing purely on physical combat. "I watched your trial," Amber said, sitting across from Marcus at his study table. "I was impressed not by your victory but by your strategy. Most warriors rely on strength and speed. You used your mind as your greatest weapon." "Thank you," Marcus replied. "I had to learn that quickly. I cannot match the strength of elven warriors, so I must think differently." "That is wisdom," Amber said. "I have been studying ancient texts about dragons and their bonds with warriors. I found something interesting. The oldest manuscripts describe humans bonding with dragons before any elves did. The texts say that humans have a special connection to dragons because we think differently. We see possibilities where others see obstacles." This information fascinated Marcus. He spent hours in the library with Amber, reading ancient texts written in various languages. They discovered that the very first dragon bonds had indeed been formed between humans and dragons thousands of years ago, before the elves developed their own bonding practices. The knowledge had been almost forgotten over time, preserved only in fragments scattered throughout old books and scrolls. Marcus's training intensified over the following months. Lyra designed special courses for him that combined elven combat techniques with tactics Marcus had learned from his human teachers. The result was something unique, a fighting style that was neither purely elven nor purely human, but a combination that drew strength from both traditions. One day, Lyra called Marcus to her private chamber in the highest tower of the Academy. The chamber was circular, with windows that looked out over the entire kingdom of Aelora. From this height, Marcus could see villages and forests, rivers and mountains, all spread out like a painting beneath the sky. "You have progressed faster than I expected," Lyra said, studying Marcus carefully. "But there is something you must understand. Bonding with a dragon is only the beginning of your journey. Now you must learn to fight as one being with Iris. You must learn to move together, to think together, to act together. When you ride her in battle, your thoughts and hers must become unified." "How do I do that?" Marcus asked. "Through practice and meditation," Lyra replied. "Through the bond you share. The dragons of Aelora are intelligent creatures with their own thoughts and personalities, but when they bond with a warrior, they develop a shared consciousness. Your victories and defeats become their victories and defeats. Your hopes and fears become their hopes and fears." Lyra taught Marcus advanced meditation techniques. She showed him how to enter a state of deep calm where he could communicate with Iris on a more profound level than mere words. During these sessions, Marcus would sit in the sanctuary, his hand on Iris's scales, and he would simply open his mind to hers. Through these meditations, Marcus learned Iris's history. He experienced the joy she had felt when bonding with Cassandra all those years ago. He felt the terror and pain of the battle where Cassandra had been killed. He understood the grief that had caused Iris to close herself off from the world, and he felt her gradual healing as she learned to trust Marcus. Iris's physical injuries also began to improve. Her wing, which had been torn and scarred, slowly grew stronger. With each flight around the mountain peaks, the damage seemed to repair itself. Lyra explained that this was not uncommon. Dragons had powerful regenerative abilities that were accelerated when they had a true bond with a warrior. Iris was healing because she had a reason to live again. As autumn turned to winter, Marcus was invited to participate in a ceremony that had not been held in 3 years. The ceremony of the hunt. Once every year, the Academy's most advanced students were allowed to participate in a hunt across the mountains of Aelora. The hunt was not about killing animals. Instead, it was a test of survival and wisdom. Students had to travel through wild terrain, find shelter, gather food, and return safely within a set number of days. It was considered one of the most challenging tests an Academy student could face. A group of 6 students was selected for the winter hunt. Melissa and Amber were chosen. Victoria was also selected, though she and Marcus exchanged cold glances when their names were announced together. Two other elite students, both skilled and confident, rounded out the group. You will hunt as individuals, Lyra explained at the ceremony. Each of you will receive a region of the mountains. You must survive alone for 3 days and 3 nights. You may bring only a knife, a water flask, and the clothes on your back. When 3 days have passed, you will return to this academy. Those who return and have survived with honor will pass the test. Those who do not return within 4 days will be considered failed. Marcus felt a chill run through him, but not from fear. This was an opportunity to prove himself further. And he had an advantage that the other students did not. He had Iris. The night before the hunt, Marcus walked to the sanctuary for the last time before the trial. Iris was waiting, as she always was. Marcus explained to her through their bond that they would be separated. He could not bring her on the hunt, as that would give him an unfair advantage. But her presence in his mind, her strength flowing through their connection, would sustain him. Iris made a low, mournful sound. Through their bond, Marcus could feel her reluctance to be parted from him. But she also understood. She lowered her great head, and Marcus embraced her scaled neck as best he could. 3 days, Marcus whispered. Just 3 days. I will return to you. As dawn broke over the mountains, the hunt began. The Dragon Keeper of Aelora. Part 5. Marcus found himself alone in a vast forest of ancient trees, their branches heavy with snow. The mountains rose around him like sleeping giants, their peaks lost in clouds and mist. He had only a knife, a water flask, and his wits. Behind him, he could hear the other students being led to their respective territories. Ahead of him was wilderness. Using the skills Lyra had taught him and the survival knowledge from his human training, Marcus began to explore his assigned territory. He moved carefully through the snow, reading the tracks left by animals and noting the locations of potential shelter. He found a small cave beneath an overhanging rock formation, relatively dry and protected from the harsh mountain winds. That first night was cold. Marcus built a small fire using dry wood he collected, careful to keep it concealed so that smoke would not give away his location. He melted snow for drinking water and caught 2 rabbits using simple snares made from branches and plant fibers. As he ate his meager meal, he closed his eyes and reached out through his bond with Iris. Through their connection, he could feel her in the sanctuary far below. She was restless and anxious, sensing his vulnerability. But Marcus sent her calm and confidence through their bond. He showed her images of the mountains and the forest. He let her see through his eyes and experience his determination. On the second day, Marcus encountered his first real challenge. He was crossing a frozen stream when his foot broke through the ice. The cold water shocked his system, and he barely managed to pull himself out before hypothermia could set in. His clothes were soaked and freezing. He made a critical decision. He gathered the driest materials he could find and built a much larger fire than before. Even though it would create more visible smoke, his survival was more important than remaining hidden. As he warmed himself by the fire, Marcus felt a change in the mountain. The air became electric with presence. Through his connection with Iris, he sensed something. A danger was approaching. Victoria emerged from the trees like a hunter stalking prey. She was soaked in blood. Though whether it was from hunting or from injury, Marcus could not tell. Her eyes were wild and her knife was drawn. "You are not as clever as you think, human," she said, moving toward him slowly. "I have been following your trail since we were separated. I have been waiting for the right moment." Marcus stood slowly, his own knife at the ready. "Why would you attack me during the hunt? The challenge is survival, not combat against other students." "The challenge is whatever we make it," Victoria replied. "And I have decided that I will make it a challenge where you fail. When they find you frozen in the snow, they will say that you were not strong enough for the academy. No one will ever know what truly happened." Victoria attacked with sudden fury, driving Marcus backward toward the fire. Her knife flashed and spun, seeking to find an opening in his defenses. Marcus parried and dodged, but he could feel that Victoria was stronger in this moment. Her pride had transformed into something darker, a need for vengeance that drove her beyond normal limits. As Victoria pressed her attack, Marcus felt something shift in his mind. Iris was trying to help him. Even though she was miles away in the sanctuary, their bond was so strong that she was lending her power and instinct to his body. Marcus's reflexes sharpened. His movements became faster and more precise. It was as though Iris was fighting through him. Marcus began to push Victoria back. She realized that something had changed, that her prey had suddenly become dangerous. Fear flickered across her face for the first time. "Stop," Marcus said, not attacking but standing defensively. "I will not hurt you, Victoria. We are both students here. We have both suffered. But I will not let you hurt me either." Victoria hesitated, breathing heavily, her knife still raised. For a moment, Marcus thought she might actually try to kill him, but then something in her expression softened. Perhaps she saw something in his face that reminded her of her own struggle. Perhaps she finally understood that Marcus had never wanted to be her enemy. Victoria lowered her knife and turned away. "Go," she said. "Get out of my sight." Marcus did not waste the opportunity. He gathered his sparse belongings and moved deeper into the forest, putting distance between himself and Victoria. He did not sleep that night, instead moving quietly through the darkness, letting his senses guide him. On the third day, Marcus realized something important. He had been so focused on survival in the physical sense that he had missed the true purpose of the hunt. The hunt was not just about surviving cold and hunger. It was about surviving solitude, about understanding oneself without the company of others, about finding peace in loneliness. As he sat on a high mountain peak looking down at the world, Marcus meditated deeply, reaching even further into his bond with Iris. Their connection grew so powerful that for a moment, he felt as though he was no longer a human boy sitting alone on a mountain. He was also a great dragon, flying through clouds, free and powerful and whole. When Marcus returned to the academy on the evening of the third day, he was changed. His clothes were tattered and covered in dirt and blood. His face was gaunt from hunger, but his eyes shone with inner strength. Lyra was waiting at the entrance to the academy. She examined him carefully, noting every detail of his condition. "You have survived," Lyra said. "But more than that, you have grown. I can see it in you." Melissa and Amber arrived within an hour of Marcus. Victoria returned at sunset, refusing to speak to anyone about what had happened during the hunt. 2 other students returned the next morning. One of the 6 never came back, and a search party was sent to find her. She was discovered 3 days later, alive but having given up the will to complete the challenge. That night, as Marcus returned to the sanctuary, Iris greeted him with a cry of joy that echoed through the mountain peaks. She circled above him and then landed beside him, her scales glowing with an inner light. Marcus embraced her as best he could, tears streaming down his face. Through their bond, Marcus felt Iris's overwhelming happiness and relief. She had endured the separation because she knew Marcus was strong. She had lent him her power when he was in danger. They had truly become one being, united in a way that transcended the physical separation between human and dragon. Lyra found them together in the sanctuary an hour later. She looked at Marcus and Iris, and a smile spread across her beautiful face. "You have completed the first phase of your training," Lyra said. "Now comes the true test. Now you must learn to fly. Now you must learn what it means to ride a dragon into battle. Now your real journey begins." Marcus looked up at the star-filled sky, and he knew that whatever came next, he and Iris would face it together. Their bond had been forged in pain and loneliness and struggle. It had been strengthened through compassion and courage. They were no longer just a human boy and an injured dragon. They were warriors. They were partners. They were one.